Can you still buy a detached home in White Rock for under $1 million? Or a townhome in South Surrey for under 700 grand? Most people moving here would swear there's no chance, but the answer is actually yes. You just have to know exactly where to look and what you're trading off to get there. So if you're thinking about making a move to South Surrey or White Rock, whether you're coming from overseas or from another province or just hopping across the bridge, this video is going to show you what it really costs to live in each part of the areas of South Surrey and White Rock. And I'm not going to send you chasing one random listing. What we're looking at is a typical home in each community and what it actually runs you: condos, townhomes, detached. So by the end, you'll know exactly where you land on the property ladder and what it takes to climb to the next rung. And stick around to the end, because there's one neighborhood where the jump from a townhome to a detached home is hundreds of thousands of dollars smaller than almost anywhere else around here. If you're trying to climb, that's the pocket that you need to know about.
You only get one chance to buy or sell your next home. Let's get it right.
Hey, real quick, before we dive in, let me tell you why you can actually trust these numbers. If you're thinking about buying or selling in White Rock or South Surrey right now, the biggest mistake you can make is leaning on outdated advice or just guessing your next move. The market has shifted, and what worked even 6 months ago could cost you tens of thousands today. My name is Darren. I'm a realtor living and working right here in White Rock and South Surrey, and I've been helping families just like yours buy and sell here since 2007. Since then, I've worked with hundreds of clients, a lot of them that found me right here on this YouTube channel because they wanted straight answers, real local insight, and a strategy that actually works. That's what I do on this channel: break down exactly what's happening in our market, what to watch out for, and how to make smart moves so you don't leave any money on the table. If that's the kind of thing that you want, well, hit subscribe. And if you're serious about making a move, there's a link below to book a quick call with me or my team. No pressure, just clear advice so you can move forward with confidence. All right, first thing you need to understand about these prices, because it changes how you read everything that follows. Every number I'm about to show you is from what's called an HPI benchmark price. HPI stands for Home Price Index, and the benchmark price is basically the price of a typical home that is in that type, or better said, that type of home in that neighborhood. Not the cheapest fixer-upper, not the multi-million-dollar showpiece, but the middle of the road home that best represents what people are actually buying. And here's why we use it instead of a plain average. With a simple average, one giant luxury sale can yank the whole number up and make an area look way pricier than it actually is. The benchmark filters that noise out and adjusts for the home's features. So when we put White Rock up against King George Corridor, it's a fair fight. A typical condo here versus a typical condo there. It's the most honest figure we've really got for what a normal home actually costs in each pocket. And one more heads up, so you know exactly what you're getting into. Today is all about the numbers, what each type of home actually costs, area by area. This is not the video where I break down what it's like to live in each neighborhood. If that's what you came here for, which pockets are best for families, for retirees, for first-time buyers, what to really expect day to day, I've got other videos right here on the channel that dig into exactly that. Right now, though, we're staying laser focused on one thing, and that's price. So let's get into it. Let's start with detached homes, the top of the ladder and the dream for a lot of people moving here. Now, I'm not going to bury you in numbers because you'll see every one of them on the screen as we go. Instead, let's group these into 3 tiers so it actually sticks. If you remember one number for detached, make it this. A typical detached home across South Surrey and White Rock sits right around the $1.7 million mark. That's your anchor. Everything else is either above it or below it. So let's start at the entry level. And yes, entry level for a detached home out here still means well over $1 million. The most accessible pockets are King George Corridor, Sunnyside Park, Crescent Beach, and Ocean Park. King George Corridor is the lowest of the bunch, sitting just under the $1.4 million price point, $1,390,800 to be exact. And this right here is what a typical detached home at that price actually looks like. For a lot of people relocating, this tier is the realistic starting point. Step up into the middle market and you're looking at White Rock itself, Pacific Douglas, and Grandview, roughly 1.65 up to around 1.8. Same category of home, but now you're paying for location, newer builds, and a little more land. Then on the top end of the scale, and this is where it climbs fast, you've got Morgan Creek, Hazelmere, and Elgin-Chantrelle. Elgin-Chantrelle is the priciest detached pocket in the entire area area, pushing past 2.2 million, $2,212,800. And here's what your money buys you up there: bigger lots, estate style homes, the premium addresses. Now, here's what I really want you to notice. From the cheapest detached pocket to the most expensive, that's over $800,000 of difference for the same type of home in the same corner of the Lower Mainland. Well, I guess that's not completely true because the homes, well, they do look significantly different for what these price points buy you. But where you plant your flag matters enormously. And that gap, it's exactly why the rest of this video is worth sticking around for. Now, let's flip to the complete other end of the ladder: condos. This is where a lot of people relocating here actually get their foot in the door because it's by far the most accessible way into South Surrey and White Rock. Here's your anchor. A typical condo across the area runs right around $575,000. But here's the part that surprises people, and it's the complete opposite of what we just saw with Detached. Condos barely move from neighborhood to neighborhood. The whole market is squeezed into one tight band. Your most affordable entry point is Crescent Beach and Ocean Park in the mid 400s, $446,200 to be exact. And this is what that looks like. That's your value play if you just want to get into the area. Just above it sits Sunnyside Park in the low 500s, and then everything else bunches up tight. Grandview, Morgan Creek, White Rock, and King George Corridor all land between the mid and high 500s, separated by just a few $1,000s. Right at the top, White Rock and King George Corridor are basically tied, both just under 600 grand. White Rock at 586,400 and King George Corridor just ahead at 593,900. Now, why would White Rock and King George Corridor both be on top? Well, a lot of condominiums in White Rock, of course, have views of Semiahmoo Bay, and there tends to be a lot of new construction in the King George Corridor area, which is why you're seeing those prices climb. So now let's look at the whole picture. From the cheapest condo pocket to the priciest, you're talking less than $150,000 of spread. Remember Detached? That gap was over 800,000. So if condos are your lane, the neighborhood matters way less for your wallet, which means you get to choose based on lifestyle, not just price. And an honest note, a few pockets like Elgin-Chantrelle, Hazelmere, and Pacific Douglas, they barely have any condos to choose from. This means they barely have a condo market to speak of. They're mostly detached in townhome country. So if apartment living is the goal, the areas that I just walked you through are where you're most likely going to actually be looking. Now, to the rung right in the middle of the property ladder, townhomes. But before we get there, I want you to quickly hand you something that could genuinely save you thousands of dollars. If you're even thinking about buying a home anywhere in BC, grab a copy of our free guide, 18 Grants and Rebates for Home Buyers. We pulled together every program that we could find, from federal, provincial, and even some of the lesser known local ones, plus the links, the tips, and the simple ways to actually use them. Most of these are buried, confusing, or completely missed by buyers, and any one of them could put real money back in your pocket. It's free, and you can download it right now by using the link in the description of this video. Okay, now back to townhomes. For a lot of people, this is the sweet spot. More space than a condo, way more attainable than the detached. The classic step-up move. Your anchor here, a typical townhome across South Surrey and White Rock, sits in the mid 800s, right around 860,000. And the townhome story lands somewhere between the two extremes, not as tightly packed as condos, but nowhere near the wild spread of detached. Here's what's interesting at the entry level. Four neighborhoods are priced almost identically. White Rock, King George Corridor, Crescent Beach, and Ocean Park, and Pacific Douglas all sit right around the 800,000 mark, within about 20 grand of each other. White Rock is the most affordable of the group at $804,500. And this is what a typical townhome looks like there. So if a townhome's your target, you've actually got a real choice at that entry price. From there, it steps up. Morgan Creek and Grandview move you into the mid to high 800s, where you're usually getting newer or larger units. And at the top, Sunnyside Park pushes into the 930s, and Elgin-Chantrelle stands alone as the only townhome pocket that cracks seven figures. $1,030,600. Here's what a typical townhome looks like up there. So zoom out from the cheapest townhome pocket to the priciest, the spread is just over 200,000. Bigger than condos, but far smaller than detached. And one quick note, like condos, Hazelmere doesn't really do townhomes, except for a few really pretty and expensive and impressive ones. It's mostly, again, detached country. So townhomes really are the bridge. And how you actually cross that bridge from a townhome to a detached home, this is the part that should actually change how you buy here. Up to now, we've talked about what each type of property costs and in what areas, but the real opportunity is in the prices. It's in the gaps between them. How big of a leap is it to climb from one rung of the property ladder to the next, assuming that somebody wants to move up the property ladder into bigger or more expensive properties? Because that leap is wildly different depending on where you're standing, which means you get to pick your community based on how easy it is to move up. Remember the neighborhood I teased at the start, King George Corridor? In most of the area, jumping from a townhome to a detached home runs you anywhere from 800,000 to over $1 million. But in King George Corridor, that leap is just 600,000, the smallest anywhere around here. So if a detached home is the dream, that's the most efficient place to make the climb. But of course, you can jump around all the communities in South Surrey, White Rock. Here's the part though that most people miss. Sometimes the jump to the next type up isn't worth it. And that's not a dead end. Moving up doesn't have to mean changing categories. A lot of the time, the smarter move is getting a much better version of what you've already got, going from a tight tandem garage style townhome, let's say around 1,300 square feet, into a bigger, double side-by-side parking garage. Maybe it's around 2,200 square feet. It's the same category, both townhomes, but completely different lifestyles. So don't just ask, how do I jump up to the next type? Ask, where does this ladder actually let me climb? Pick the right neighborhood or mix and match the neighborhoods, but your next move up might only be a couple $100,000 cheaper. So here's the bottom line. Getting into South Surrey or White Rock isn't about chasing one magic price. It's about knowing where you fit on the ladder and where that ladder actually lets you climb. The condo that gets you in the door, the townhome that gives you the room to grow, or the detached home that's closer than you'd think in the right pocket. Same area, completely different paths. And now you know how to read them. And if you're planning a move here, the smartest thing you can do is have a quick conversation before you start shopping, because picking the right neighborhood can save you hundreds of thousands over your next two moves, not just one. And that's exactly what the link below this video is for. And if you've got a family, don't click away just yet, because the video coming up next is one you're actually going to need. I'm breaking down the top 3 best neighborhoods for families in South Surrey and White Rock, the pockets with the right schools, the right streets, and the right feel for raising kids. Want to know which 3 made the cut? Well, the good news is that video is coming up right now. The problem is real and it's frustrating. Young families moving to South Surrey keep running into the same headache. Trying to find a townhome that fits your budget, gives you enough space, and checks all the boxes for you and your family, it's like trying to win the real estate lottery.